It's not like once you're empowered, you're always feeling that way. And I'll tell you off the get-go, in talking about this topic, you're going to see that I bend a lot of times towards understanding empowerment is a little bit of a perception. And we're going to talk about in a little bit informal and formal power in relationships so we understand power dynamics in relationships. But a lot of times this is in the way that we feel. Like you can have been given authority and still not feel empowered. Hello, this is Through a Therapist's Eyes. I want you to think about for a moment whether you feel these things, right? Feeling involved in decision making. And if you have information for the situation that you're in or you're provided enough, you get recognition and awards and feel appreciated. You have autonomy in decision making or prioritization in your relationships of communication is had and you feel comfortable in those communications. You have wow moments where you think about, identify, and understand things about yourself. These are different individual and specific ways that are kind of cool to think about our topic today, right? I want empowerment. I think that's what I entitled it, right? I want to feel empowered. And I think that's going to catch people because it's something that we want. And I'm afraid a lot of us out there, at times myself just as well as you, do not tend to feel empowered. We feel helpless and scared and powerless. I mean, these are things oftentimes people are probably much more in touch with than this concept of empowerment. But this is, as I said, Through a Therapist's Eyes. If you're finding us for the first time, we have weekly episodes on everything mental health and substance abuse. We got Mr. John Pope over there. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well, thank you.
All right.
I'm empowered.
You are empowered today.
Yes,
You're
I'm
feeling empowered.
empowered.
That's good. That's good. In control and
In
power.
control, yes.
It's like He-Man, right? Like, I have the
Power,
yes. You know, there's a She-Ra as well. I didn't watch her as much.
yeah.
It was He-Man
And She-Ra.
was it She-Ra? I
think
didn't
so.
feel like that sounded right, but yes. Neil is behind the curtain saying, yes.
I was an adult when those cartoons were being made. So
Sadly, I was a kid.
You were a kid.
But I am not 50 years old yet. I've been making this point all week long. I am not even 50 yet.
That's excellent.
It is excellent.
You will be someday.
Only single digits, but that's another topic. Mix Victoria Pendergrass. How are you, man?
Hi, I'm here.
Not to be confused with Pentergrass.
Right. Which I'm sure someone might be named that, but that's not my name.
You are just here? What do you mean just here? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like behind on my notes. I've never been behind on my notes. I'm just like got a lot going on. So, you know what? I'm just going to be present for this podcast and go from there.
Well, our current event that we have today is actually in your wheelhouse. So
it
chip
is.
up, stay alive. So this is where you get insights directly from a therapist from in personal time in your car and at home. It's not the delivery of therapy services in any way, right, Victoria?
That is correct.
I'm nailing it back. See, I told you
are.
once I get
I'm so
locked in,
proud.
I'm all right. What else to say? We have Through a Therapist's Eyes, Re-Understanding Emotions and Becoming Your Best Self. It is a book with a new book coming on marriage, so that's a part of our platform. Contact at Through a Therapist's Eyes, a great way to contact us. Send us your questions, your thoughts. What else? Neil, you don't have a mic. Are you going to trust me to do the YouTube thing? He's shaking his head. He's going to trust me. So episode 220 is our switch over to YouTube Live. So we do a Facebook Live when we're recording the show live. We're going to switch that over to YouTube, which is cool because it's the same sort of stuff, different platform. You just type in the YouTube search Through a Therapist's Eyes. You'll see us come up. Subscribe to us there. Yeah, click on the blue bell. It gives you a notification when we're live, which is usually about 6:15 on Thursdays. So that's going to be fun to see you guys over there on YouTube. Tell all your friends. Help us grow the show. 5-star reviews, all that kind of stuff makes a big difference. So what do you guys think about the topic today, empowerment? I set it up thinking, do a lot of people really feel this way or not? I guess you got to consider the source of therapist office, right? We talked to a lot of people that might
I think a lot of people want to feel empowered.
Yeah.
they may not even really understand it, but
Right.
they're kind of wanting to explore it.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah,
Have
I think,
it.
Yeah.
Catchy title, right? I want to feel empowerment. Like,
Yeah.
I think that is something. The reason why I titled it that way, because exactly like you said. So, we're going to dig into empowerment tonight. Before we do, I've got a cool current event. I wanted to hit it because, man, Victoria, did you responded like you kind of heard this,
Yeah.
but
so,
didn't really know? Or John, have you heard this at all?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I actually have the FDA article pulled up right now.
I'm going to highlight that in a second. It
Yeah.
was
So,
a
I mean,
differential. Well, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it says here, like on October 12th of last year, 2022, they announced that there was a shortage of an ADHD medication called Adderall, which
Right.
most people know about, which is a pretty big deal. It's a pretty big deal for the people that are on Adderall that use it to help them with focus and to help with their ADHD.
Well, it is a big deal. I mean, it's and I've had clients talking about this. This is why I'm kind of like, oh, this needs to be a current event because it's impactful. We won't get into much of the dynamics of the actual medication.
Right.
Suffice it to say what your opinions may or may not be on it. I will say that there's a lot of science around this being a really helpful medication for folks that have ADHD.
Thank you.
And the counterbalance to that is people that say, "Oh, it's just like taking speed and that type of a thing." Yeah, well, go ahead, Victoria. You might put some credence to it.
I think I can add some personal things to this because as someone, I don't know if you can tell from a mic, but
we have not noticed at all.
You're not interrupting, are you?
Yeah, no,
Also.
definitely not. I do have ADHD, specifically combined type, so the inattentiveness and the hyperactivity. And so as someone who has been on, I started ADHD medication when I was in second grade. So that was 2002.
Right.
No, that's a lie. Because I was in third grade when 9/11 happened. So that was in 2000.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, sure. Somewhere around in there. And I've been on ADHD medication since I got pregnant.
Okay.
And I had to stop it because I was pregnant. And then I haven't been on it since then because I'm breastfeeding and I can't take it while breastfeeding. But so as someone who has taken it for basically my whole life, it's an important thing. It is not, I would not equate it to speed.
Right.
If you think of your brain as like spaghetti, okay, before medication just kind of helps untangle it and kind of help you focus so that you're able to accomplish tasks and get things done.
Whereas people that do not have ADD take it, you're wired.
Right. Yeah.
You're wired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And exactly. And maybe is that one of the reasons why there may be a shortage?
Well, let's get to that, John. Exactly. And I want to be a little brief because we have a lot of stuff to get to with empowerment. But you'll just have to take Victoria's word for it. And honestly, we need to do a show with this panel on it. We've done shows on ADD before, ADHD, Victoria. She corrected me. I for years have said attention deficit disorder. It was a pet peeve of
Which
mine.
that used to be
yeah,
a thing, but
right.
now it is no
Formerly called
formerly called
ADHD.
ADD.
So let's just jump to like what is being said. You raised a skeptical question, John, and I like that. Right? It's interesting because the FDA says in an article that it was due to intermittent manufacturing delays, right? And I'm not sure that I buy that. There was another article that you can check out on our site that was quoted. I don't know. The source was The Guardian, right? It's an interesting website, but
The Guardian is kind of an excellent news source, isn't it?
Okay. I'm not as familiar with it.
It's British and
Oh, is it?
That doesn't make it better. I mean, they also have the Daily Mail, but
Yeah.
the Guardian is kind of a premier website.
Okay, good, because it offered what, at a pretty decent scan on my part, a different take on this whole thing. And they say that it was a long article, so I did not read it. I'm going to be honest. The worst of it's ever been is what they say. So the Guardian goes into a little bit more deep thoughtfulness revolving around the coronavirus and the online startups that we did a current event on as well with Cerebral and some other companies that have been out making good money on virtual prescriptioning.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If prescriptioning is a word, right? They made a crap ton of money around all these prescriptions and stuff. That's the truth. That's what I see, for what it's worth. It was brought up by a client of mine that talked about another factor. I'm not sure if the article went into it or not, but that basically these stimulant medications for ADD are highly regulated by the government. Okay. Yeah. Highly, right? Victoria knows. You cannot get more than a month's subscription. There's a lot of things to it. Well, one of the things that began to happen, John, that you just alluded to, I don't know if you said that knowingly or not, but there have been way more prescriptions allotted
Mm-hmm.
because I suspect these companies were banging this stuff out. It's been very controversial and in the news. They've been basically busted for it and have had to retract a lot of these practices that started to occur. And I'm not sure of the truth of this, but per what my client explains to me, I didn't know this, but the government, in part of their regulation, limits the amount that can be produced.
Mm-hmm.
Now, have y'all ever heard that?
No, but it kind of makes sense.
Yeah,
Maybe
I don't know,
like
right? That seems weird to me. But for whatever reasons, manufacturing or increased utilization, inappropriate use, I would wonder. There is a major shortage that people are having to go from pharmacy to pharmacy to pharmacy to pharmacy, literally to get, Victoria, what you, and we're going to take you at your word,
Right.
experience as a major tool in
Well-
helping to manage ADHD.
most people who are on ADHD medication, and I can speak from experience, the people around them are going to be able to notice the difference on the days that they forgot to take their medicine and on the days that they take their medicine.
Yeah.
I mean, John's laughing at me. I mean, I had plenty. If my friends ever listen to this, they can attest.
So when are you going to stop breastfeeding?
We'll see. But they're like, it's not that people that need it are people have used the word, oh, you're addicted to it. You have to do it.
That is such a canard.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And but what people don't understand is if you find something that can help you focus and can help you complete tasks throughout your day and can make those spaghetti noodles in your brain a little bit untangled.
Yeah.
Like,
it's helpful. Listen, I will say, then we'll move on to empowerment if it's okay. I will say that a long-standing belief that I've had working with people, seriously, is that medications are a great tool to help manage mental health. They are not a solution. Okay?
Mhm.
That's sort of
You have to
prescription
do the
golden
work.
rule in my mind.
You have to do the work.
There's a lot that goes into being well. But medications are a viable, responsible, helpful tool for all sorts of things. Thank goodness we have technology that's developed these things.
what
So-
I would add lastly to that is that if you are someone who is being affected by this shortage, talk to your primary care provider. There are alternative medications for ADHD,
Yeah,
like
my client
Concerta,
Yeah.
Ritalin, Vyvanse. There are other options for you out there, and hopefully, if you need to switch, you can find one that still provides you with the same effectiveness as Adderall.
Yeah. The problem needs to get fixed.
Yeah.
People are going without prescriptions, and you don't need to just be stuck coming off of them abruptly. This is a problem. So we need to be aware of it, and we're putting a little bit out there about it. So for hopefully good. So let's talk about empowerment, right? We like to start out on definitions a lot of times. I mean, when you think of empowerment, off the cuff, guys, what would you say that you would explain empowerment as being for people? Is that unfair?
Go ahead.
No,
No, go ahead.
I just thought of the term like girl power, which I hate that term, but
Fine. That's
like-
not bad.
we're gonna say woman power.
Right.
Like I am woman, hear me roar,
Right.
kind of thing.
Right.
Uh,
So,
Yeah, empowerment. And of course, He-Man. You know,
Yes.
I've got the power. you
Did I
know.
say that on the Facebook Live? I think.
I
not
think
the
you
show,
did, yeah. And I think of an old Gary Puckett song from the Union Gap. Willpower, it's now or never. So,
Okay.
But
You gonna break out in song?
no, I'm not this time.
Nothing.
Willpower.
There you go. It is something that we have in our culture,
Yeah.
right? And I like to think of it really as just being engaged, feeling competent and valued. That's kind of a basic summary of mine. In looking at this, they
Dude.
define it as authority or power given to someone to do something. Okay. A better one that I saw came out: the process of becoming stronger and more confident, especially in controlling one's life and claiming one's rights.
Now that's also a process.
Isn't
the
it though?
The second definition.
Isn't it though?
It's much more. Is a part of a lifelong task, I guess, that we're given. Is
Right.
to become empowered and to become competent.
It's also a bit of a moving target, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
It's not like once you're empowered, you're always feeling that way. And I'll tell you off the get-go, in talking about this topic, you're going to see that I bend a lot of times towards understanding empowerment is a little bit of a perception. And we're going to talk about a little bit informal and formal power in relationships so we understand power dynamics in relationships. But a lot of times this is in the way that we feel. Like you can have been given authority and still not feel empowered.
Mhm.
So I love what you say, and maybe you can expound on it, John, that this is a little bit of a process that you go through. It's not something really that you're given, right?
Right. And I think that's you think about in terms of growing up and in your home, you're given more tasks to do. You develop a sense of competency, and so in a way, you're empowered
Yeah.
to be able to do more. And the idea is that you start to enjoy being responsible and doing this. The problem I see is that we're in some situations sometimes where you're given a lot of responsibility to do something, and so you might think you're empowered, but in fact you don't have the authority. So
Yeah.
and that happens.
There's a lot around this, or it gets snatched from you, and that autonomy gets taken.
And you see that in people in careers, and
Mhm.
particularly in this environment. There's a major employer in this area that has cut many thousands of jobs overall.
Or
Yeah.
your job gets taken. Yeah,
it
that's
gets
a whole
taken. Yeah,
another component for sure.
yeah.
You know, I looked at this in way of thinking about, what does this really have to do with having and executing the ability to make choices, right? To me, empowerment has a lot to do also with like choices. I made a note to tell myself as a reminder on our process here that's one thing that I've done with my kids over and over and over again. My son was actually on a show here, and he laughed about it, and it came to that I tell him I greet them goodbye. Hey, make it a great day. Make good choices. And my son was funny on the show. He's like, yeah, I've heard that more than once, but I do that purposely because like that's so important that they understand. I have choices. I'm making choices, and I need to think about making good choices. Because that's empowerment, right?
Right.
In your life as you go.
You have people, for example, that have suffered uh, significant medical issues, perhaps strokes, that sort of thing, where they maybe their thinking processes have been altered or they develop serious mental illness, and sometimes their choices are removed, and so they have that sense of frustration that they've lost power.
Yeah, go a little further with that, insofar as that the losing power
Well,
sense that people,
okay.
and I'll add, there's whole groups of people that feel
Huh.
disempowered and that type of a thing. That's a
Well,
process too,
and I
right?
think with economic turmoil as well, there's a sense of loss of power if you lose your job or your livelihood, and so you feel like you don't have a purpose. I have I've had clients in the past that have really dealt with. They've developed perhaps a major serious mental illness, such as a mood disorder, that sort of thing, and they can no longer work.
Right.
Yeah, and so they don't have a good sense of who they are as persons. Their personhood is, in a sense, diminished, and so that makes so their sense of a concept, their sense of who they are, if they feel good, do they feel they develop anxiety, depression. Am I making sense?
You're making total sense, and
Is that-
I'll tell you where my mind went on a little journey with as you were talking.
I
right?
saw your mind wander
Oh,
away.
it's wandering back to a moment, and I'll share it. I didn't plan on it, but it gets to a little bit of what you're saying now. Me being through my life, I've been a rule follower. That's a problem of mine. It's true. It's gotten a lot better.
I'm just
Maybe
kidding. That does
maybe
not
that's.
surprise me.
I love that you're saying that because
does not surprise me.
it doesn't surprise you, or does
no,
surprise you?
it does not surprise
Oh,
me
that I'm a
you
rule
were
follower. Oh, okay. Well, then
I was
shoot.
being sarcastic.
I thought I've gotten better. Anyway, I guess I haven't. So, I've never been incarcerated, but I had an interesting.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. But it was an interesting moment when I took a tour of the West Virginia Penitentiary
Oh, my
down in
goodness.
Was it Moundsville, I believe.
Moundsville, yeah.
Yeah, right. And you could take a tour of this place. I
just
think I
because.
actually went with my dad, if I remember correctly. Anyway, we took a tour of this place. Yes, just because, right? It's just a historic building now and what we used to do with incarceration. But I'll tell you, they put you in and they lock you in a cell. They do. And the door closes and you're sitting in this cell, and I was just like, whoa. I mean, what just happened? It was a weird moment.
Okay. Did you actually feel like you were in jail?
I allowed myself, because obviously it's a tour and whatever, but I
Right.
did a little thought experiment with that to see, like,
Okay.
okay, what is this really like? And I'll tell you, when something's taken away from you, such as your civil liberties or something like that, the overwhelming feeling that I can imagine having, I got just a little bitty taste of it that day, but I can imagine when that's really taken over. And as you're talking about, John, the loss of this or the changing fluctuation in your life, that's a horrible feeling.
It is an overwhelming feeling, and I think it engenders anxiety. I was a brig
Yeah.
chaplain in the Navy in one
Yeah,
of my
right.
previous incarnations.
You're
and-
probably laughing at me now.
no, because every time I went in, I had to go in the cell. I had to go in the cell with the sailor or the Marine.
Yeah, and they close you in.
And they close you in. Yeah, and I know in my head
Yeah.
I was going to get out.
Yeah.
But there's that sense of they could keep you there.
Yeah. You are at the mercy of somebody else. And that feels very powerless in a weird sort of way.
Mhm.
I don't have time to tell the story. We're going to move on. But I did a suicide risk assessment on somebody that was in a jail cell. It was literally a padded cell or whatever. Oh, my God. I was totally green, knew nothing of what I was doing. I was brand new in the field. And that was a much better feeling than Moundsville's penitentiary. But this is I think the main point here is this is a really powerful and visceral experience that you can have both ways, very positive and uplifting when you feel empowered, and very helpless and scary when you become in a disempowered state. Like, this is a big deal, right?
Yeah.
So let's transition to a little segment on the structures that we have with power in relationships. Victoria, I'm just curious, being a younger therapist, have you thought much about or dealt with, like, it's kind of an abrupt concept, right? It's a weird concept to emotionally think about a power concept in relationships. Like, are you powerful? Are you not powerful? What's the power structure of relationships?
Like,
Because I know they didn't talk about it in school.
definitely not. Like, are you talking about between me and a client, or between like a client's own relationships?
Just relationships, so
In
broad. Yeah,
general.
there's a power structure in therapy.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's an awesome responsibility, right? But just in general, have you thought about it much or dealt with power in relationships?
I wouldn't say that I've put tons of thought into it, like purposefully.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would say that I like it. It probably has come up in sessions, but I mean, it's not. I'm gonna be honest.
Not as
It's
directly.
not really. Well, it's not really something that I've delegated like a lot of and put a lot of time
Yeah.
into thinking about. I'm gonna be honest. So
Yeah, and you will more and more as you work
Right.
with people, right,
Right.
John? You
You know, I was thinking, I do counseling with couples, and they've been married. They come from very different backgrounds, or they're partners, and there's sometimes a power struggle.
Oh yes.
Yeah, and that sometimes over a period of time, that let's say, and usually I've seen this with more of the women, is they've become increasingly disempowered,
Yep.
and it's because of, let's say, the person, the male in this case, would be from a more traditional background and would say, I'm the head of the family,
Head of household, right?
head of
Yeah.
household. I'm going to handle the money. I'm going to handle the bills.
Mm.
You know,
yeah.
and it's more than just, well, I'm going to make life easier for you. I'm actually going to control you.
Right. And this is also with parenting, you know,
Mhm.
Victoria, in your work in the schools, you know,
Yeah.
kids, do they feel empowered or disempowered? We mentioned in the workplace, like, relationships have a power structure.
Well, I mean, I'm thinking even in the classroom,
Yeah. Oh, yes.
like there are some teachers who give up their power, and let the kids take that power, and then that is when, I mean, that's when.
And they
The-
get frustrated.
Yeah, well,
and-
yeah,
and
the teacher gets frustrated
and tries to
because-
take it back, and
but they've already given it up. So,
So
and
here's
it's
the
hard to
thing
get
that I
back.
see with people is people become very confused about the power structures that do exist in relationships. I think at this point we've convinced you that they're there a little bit, right? And the fact that people get confused wraps itself around the difference between formal and informal power. And I think that's a central piece about what happens in feeling empowered.
Can you explain more about informal?
Perfectly, absolutely,
Power.
right?
Yeah.
Formal power is what you would think it to be. You've been decreed some sort of authority in some regard, and it's formal, it's real. A judge has the power to indict a ruling. A president has a power over the Congress to veto. A parent has power over the kids formally insofar as custody, right? So there's formal processes that go on where people have a certain authority or ability that is honored and respected and given. It's a decree, right? And there's lots and lots of them. I gave a few examples. But way more commonly what happens is informal power, right? And an informal power in relationships operates sort of in a way where so the way I like to describe this is, you know, those folks that kind of walk in the room and they own the room,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of political experience when groups of people are had. You know, the squeaky wheel gets the grease is an expression that comes to mind. We know what this is like, but we don't really think about it in purposeful terms. Domestic violence is one where it's horrific. There's no formal power here, one over the other, but the informal power is debilitating. Right?
It's the intimidation.
Yeah.
It's the demeaning. It's the person that would hear that you're no good, you're worthless.
And what do we do with victims of domestic violence? We help to build them up with their self-confidence, with their ability.
And sometimes they have to go away and go to a place where they are built up, and it's a private place where the person that was that was being the abuser doesn't know where they are.
Absolutely.
But it's a process because the person has to get their power back that's been a victim.
So informal power is different than overpowering. We went with that. That's a part of informal power. But I want to make the point that it's not necessarily overpowering as well. You know, somebody that's funny or has a gregarious personality, they'll have a lot of informal power in groups because we look to them. There's sort of natural leadership ability.
So you're kind of equating excuse me, you're kind of equating power with almost like influence?
Influence is
In a
another
way,
word that
yeah.
is, absolutely. Go a little further with that.
Just saying that, you know, there are some people who, you know, you might tend to listen to a little bit more, who might have a little bit more of an influence on the choices that you make and the things that you do. And I think that can kind of be related to this power dynamic.
Absolutely. And I know it's somewhere in my thinking show notes, but I want to put it in here because it's so important. And it's a part of this dynamic that we have with informal power. Because I work with this a lot in therapy with people, right? And the concept is, and I'm curious if you guys are going to get this word, right? So there's a word that's right in the middle that is the target. And I work with this with people. I'm sure you do as well. But if you think about aggressive personalities or characteristics
Assertive.
and passive, you're way ahead of me, right?
I'm sorry.
No, it's perfect. Because it's right in the middle, right? Between passive tendencies and behavior and aggressive tendencies and behavior. And we're shooting for the one right in the middle, which I didn't even get it out and you nailed it. Because we deal with this all the time. There's even this thing, assertiveness training. You remember that back in the day, John?
Oh, yeah, back in the day. That was a late 80s, early 90s.
Does
Y'all
that
had-
still-
y'all had assertiveness training?
It's a thing, yeah.
It's a thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it still a thing?
So-
That was my
workshop.
question. Is it still a thing? I don't know that
I don't know. Would they maybe call it something else now? Like, what would you call it today?
I don't know. Do you?
Or would you
No,
still
I
call it
don't-
assertive training? Because
I
I've never.
do assertiveness exercises all the time,
Right.
but I don't think I've seen a workshop for assertiveness training
For a
for
while.
30
right?
years. You
Yeah.
know?
Then, John, you just might have to teach me some things.
I want you to assert yourself.
Well,
yeah.
Victoria, no, you teach people this all the time. You just said influence and
She's very good
being
at this.
confident and, kind of learning how to speak up for yourself, finding your voice. There's a lot of phrases and ways we go about managing this, but, do you feel really empowered when you're aggressive? Actually, probably not, right? Do you feel obviously not empowered when you're passive? Like, definitely not.
When I see somebody that's being overly aggressive or aggressive, they're scared. That
Yeah.
person
Oh,
or
yeah.
persons are scared.
They're not feeling empowered.
And they're feeling very weak and vulnerable, and they're going to hide it. And so they become like a cat, and they blow themselves up.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And become aggressive and blow out to overcompensate for
Yep.
what you're feeling. I tell you what, being assertive feels awesome. It really does.
Amen.
Right? When you can make your point, you can push your agenda, you can be heard, like feeling grounded, feeling like, you have something value, like you're enough, you're important, and I have something important to say. I want you to hear it. And I'm going to push for space into this. Now listen, I'm going to push for space into this relationship that we have and the power that is existing between you and I. I'm not going to overrun you. I'm not intentionally going to. I don't want to be aggressive. I want to hear what you have to say. But we work to achieve a balance in this informal power structure that definitely exists in relationships. I deal with this all the time in therapy. And I'm stunned at how often. Ask your folks, Victoria, through the years.
Okay.
John, have you ever asked that? What's the middle between assertive and or what's the middle between passive and aggressive?
You know, it's interesting. I think it has come up a number of times, but mostly it's to say, have you considered this alternative? And when I would talk to them, I said, you don't have to be a rug, or a doormat, but you also don't have to go over the top. You can be assertive. You can state your case and do it calmly.
Yeah. Yeah, in my sessions, I will ask and have many times, do you know the word that's in the middle? And I'm just making this up sort of anecdotally. Don't hold me to the number, but I'm going to say I don't know, maybe 15-20% of the time people are able to get that word.
Yeah.
80% of the time or so, they have no idea, and I'm amazed that people don't know the healthiest route to take.
It's either the
with
floodgates are open in terms of aggression, or it's like everything's shut up tight.
I don't want to make waves. I don't want to cause a problem. I'm just going to shut it down. That's you get into passive stances, or the blowing out and blowing up. So I really want you listening to this show to be thinking a lot as we go through, that idea of assertiveness. What really does it mean to feel empowered? Assertiveness in choices, and you get some of the perceptions.
I'm going back to you went back to your childhood and you got put in jail or in the pen.
Okay,
but asking a girl out for the first time.
Oh gosh,
yeah, I felt so empowered after I finally got my anxiety under control and was able to go in and ask somebody. And I was just, they can always say no, but no, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt so bad, scared. It's going to crush me. And when she didn't, and it was wonderful.
Absolutely.
And the only girl I ever dated and ever asked out was my wife, Joy Marie Pike.
Oh, that's
Aren't
not
you lucky?
true.
No, that's not true.
That can't be true. No, I'm enjoying that feeling with you, John, because I go back with the days, where the rotary phone,
Yeah.
You get the next one, and the next one.
And
That last digit, man.
Oh man.
Oh, it was tough.
That's right. We had a rotary dial.
I know how to work it. Okay, I know what it is. Okay, that's just a little bit, just slightly before my time.
And it was
Just
so amazing. You're right. I totally am joining with you with that feeling when you get, the yes, and then you feel more comfortable and you can do it again. And it's just it's terrifying before you get comfortable with that, though. Yeah, it's terrifying. So we're gonna skip out to the next segment of what living an empowered life is really like, and I think we've talked about that a little bit, but let's first take a break for the sponsor of our show that we've been highlighting lately. So BetterHelp is an online virtual experience that you have gaining a therapy experience with people, and we have that as a sponsor to our show. You go to the throughatherapisteyes.com, click on the counseling button, and it sends you through in an awesome process with an online virtual therapy experience. Victoria, what do you think about that?
I think it's definitely needed. It's great for people to have access to a platform that provides them with competent therapists to help them with their needs, and it also helps that it can reach them at any time of the day.
John, have you ever referred somebody to BetterHelp?
No, I haven't yet.
Haven't either, I think, actually.
I think I should try that.
Right.
Maybe I need that too.
Well,
I mean,
Therapists need
I'm
therapists.
therapist,
Oh,
yeah.
I love Casey's statement. I'm going to use it for the rest of my life. The best therapists have therapists. That's absolutely a truism.
If you haven't been on the other side, there's no way that you're going to be able to empathize and understand. Walk in the shoes.
Absolutely.
And the same shoes. We've all been through this experience of our human experience, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
And it's necessary, it's needed. As you listen to a Through a Therapist's Eyes podcast show, I'm sure different episodes bring up different things for you. No doubt about it.
Well, it's affordable, too, isn't it? I mean, it's...
It is.
Yeah.
And they use insurance on the platform. But the point that I really want to make to you is these shows hopefully get you thinking about things, and things come up, and you want to reach out. You can't reach out to us directly unless you're in North Carolina. And BetterHelp is a very viable option to check them out. So please think about these things we talk about, and please click over to throughatherapisteyes.com, click the counseling button, and experience BetterHelp for yourself. And let's get back to the show. So what is living an empowered life really like? I did do that on the mics for this show, not just the Facebook Live, right? The what is empowerment like, right? I think I did.
Yes.
Pretty sure. And it was interesting because when I was tooling around on Google a little bit, this is talked about a whole lot in management circles.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Right.
Education circles when I taught school.
Okay.
College.
Yeah, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that because young adults needing to get oriented with this is important. Those ones that I read off are really actually suggestions from a management perspective on how to induce empowerment in your employees, in your supervisees, in your direct reports. And I thought it was really cool. That's why I made them a part of my list, right? Involved in decision makings. Are you, as an employee, empowered, right? Are you provided the information and the training that you need? That's a way to empower people. Do you get recognition? Do you receive appreciation in way of awards? Do you have autonomy in decision making? Autonomy, like micromanagement, destroys that, right? Prioritizing connection in communication and going back and forth both ways, not just one way. They had flexible work hours included in it. I thought that was a little bit silly, frankly, in my view, but the flexibility is important. And, creating wow moments I thought was interesting from a managerial perspective, but I purposely in the beginning of the show cited those ones, thinking, how do we do that in our personal lives? Do we empower ourselves, and do we empower those that are around us with these concepts? I think it's hard.
Yes, it is hard. One of the things, having been in the military before, is that they start from the time that you are in boot camp, they being the gunnery sergeants, for example, or the DIs, you get the idea from mass media or movies or television that you're actually not anything and you don't have any authority or any power. But they start from the very beginning, the first day of training. They give the recruits, the boots, more and more responsibility.
Oh, yeah.
And they get more responsibility, they get more authority. And that one of the things that when I was in the military, I didn't have my captain, my 06 guy, say, now, John, you're going to do all this during the day. He said, I want it, you do it.
Get it done.
Get it done, and you do it right, but get it done and report back.
I've thought about it that way. That's cool.
Yeah, and that empowered me.
It builds you up.
Builds me up, and I was able to think outside the box.
We could take a lot of that and apply it to parenting, and how we're trying to build our kids up. But do we simply just tell them what to do?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's it's interesting you bring that up because I think that's with this whole gentle parenting movement is giving your kids. So, for example,
go ahead. Yeah, explain this.
I mean, and I've explained gentle parenting on here before, but an example as far as empowerment goes is um, giving your kids the option to make them feel like they still have a choice, right? So, okay, it's time to get up and go to bed. You come now, or you give them options. Okay, how about we skip to the bathroom, or we can walk sideways to the bathroom, or we can crab leg to the bathroom, or we can, you give them options, or, okay, we can do this in 5 minutes, or we can do this in 3 minutes or 1 minute. Like, you give them options. So the ultimate goal is still reached. Like, we're still getting ready for bed. We're still doing this. We're still doing what we need to do, but we're allowing our kids to
Make choices.
opportunities to make choices, which then can make them feel empowered.
In the power structure, there's a power structure of the parent being the authority, right? Which is an interesting blend. I'm not as familiar with the gentle parenting stuff. I go more with love and logic, but it's a highly structured environment. Like, we're going to bed. That's what's going to happen. You have this choice and that choice and that choice.
Yeah.
Is that fair to?
Yeah, but no, I mean, love and logic is basically another way to say gentle parenting. Really, I mean,
Things just get renamed. Yeah.
Yeah.
This isn't a tiger mom thing.
a what?
A tiger mom? You've heard of that?
I don't know what a
haven't you? And that
tiger mom
that-
is.
I think I have.
It's basically you impose your will on
Yeah.
your kiddo.
Oh.
And,
Like,
they'll-
I'm gonna take you to bed, kicking or screaming up to you, like that kind of thing.
Honestly,
Yeah.
we fall into those traps. I'm guilty many times over, not proud of it, of
Right.
just going at it, and getting into power struggles is enemy number one in that
Mhm.
domain. But the military, your marriage, employment, parenting, like, you see all of these areas and how we interact together, right? Like, and choices we said that a little bit ago, a big part of that. There are other ways to indicate, how do you feel empowered, or do you not? Like, what is it really like? Do you believe you have the power to change your own circumstances as a concept? Do you believe you can contribute to something with value? Do you believe that you make a difference with the people and the issues around you?
That's just the opposite of hopeless and helpless.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah.
I think so. Go ahead.
So no, where I'm going with this is the idea that when we do therapy, for example, we want to empower our clients to be able to say, I do have choices. I do have the ability to choose my own way. There might be some barriers, but you would be able to continue on with that encouragement. And so,
Well, there's barriers, but as the sergeant said, get it done
yeah, get it done. Yeah.
one way or
Done.
another.
That's right. And interestingly enough to me is that you would have somebody that is like a 19-year-old or a 20-year-old. I had one of my clients, he's a Marine, and he said, I was actually running an airfield in Iraq when I was 19 years old.
Oh, wow.
And that, yeah, he joined when he was 18, and he went through Pendleton, and then he went for a little bit of training, and then, but he was given over a period of weeks and months, in a year, in this case, a year and a half, he was given more and more responsibility, and he was competent and able to do that. He's very competent in what he's doing now, and he's a young man.
19 years old,
19,
running an
19 years old.
airport.
Breathe.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an awesome responsibility, but you know what? I
Uh-huh.
can imagine that.
Yeah.
Because, listen, and here's another really cool point for you guys listening to the show to think about. When you feel helpless and you feel disempowered, the experience that you have is changeable. It is workable. You can begin to make choices for yourself. You can begin to engage the things around you. You can begin to exercise your influence in small ways, building up to big ways where your ability is unimaginable at this moment for you, honestly. That's what I believe. And that defeats powerlessness and helplessness and the things that we struggle with in our therapy offices with our clients all the time. Right? Does that sound
Right.
fair?
Sounds great.
Sounds great.
So let's switch over to how do we do this? How do we really accomplish what I just highlighted can be accomplished, right? I am curious what you guys think about this concept here of perception. Does empowerment, the concept that we've talked about, does it boil down to oftentimes your perception being a big part of this?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, in other words, if you perceive yourself as unempowered or not having power, you don't know what you already have. In fact, you're discounting, and you're probably listening to someone else say that you don't have power, and so you're believing that.
Your older brother says,
Older brother, yeah.
Do what I say, do what I do. I'm in control. The informal power. Yeah, I know there's formal power. We talked about that before a little bit ago. In the informal power structures in relationships, when I think about this issue, I feel like there's a lot of perception being thrown around.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, when you buy into the perception that is your own internal interpretation of being helpless, you're going to stay stuck. And that's a horrible feeling that you can totally get out of with your perception changing. Is that not a true statement?
Well, that's REBT, isn't it? That is, you dispute the irrational belief or thought.
REBT therapy means what?
Rational emotive behavioral therapy.
Oh, I love it.
RESPCT.
Yeah. You're going to break out in song on that. No, it is. It's REBT. It's rational therapy. It's cognitive behavioral reframing. It's understanding your perceptions. It's understanding your empowerment through what you perceive was taken that you can take back.
Right.
And
There you
that's
go.
a wonderful process to watch people go through, isn't it?
Exactly.
So how do we take it back? What are some of the things that we do? Yeah, and I wanted to kind of make the point that that we need to manage this really internally. The question that I would pose after that is, I think we've already answered it. If it is to do a lot with perception, can people take your power away
If you let them.
if you let them?
That's where I think the struggle is with people sometimes.
Right.
Is they gain empowerment, but then something happens, whatever it may be.
Or they have it. And I'm looking at DV, domestic violence.
Right.
In those situations, well, let's say the person gets training, actually begins to work through that process, and she feels or he feels a little more empowered at the time. But
The victim, you mean?
the
right?
victim, and then
Actually, I like to say the object person.
the object.
Yeah.
But anyway, but you get back into that situation, and then the old habits come back, or
Right.
the informal power comes back, because it's kind of rooted in your brain. You've got to retrain the brain.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, that's why it's called the
over-
cycle of abuse, is
Yeah.
because it
Yeah,
just get
and so how do you
stuck
do?
going.
And you get off that track. How do you?
Interesting
change-
thing happens with prejudice and racism. Groups of people make strides and feel more assertive and then fall back into older patterns. There's a lot of perception in this.
Mark Twain and Huckleberry Finn, and
Mhm.
when Huckleberry Finn and Jim, who was the runaway slave,
Yeah.
is in the river, they're so wise. He's so wise. Huckleberry Finn is. He's come so far, but as soon as they go onto the land, he goes back into the old ways.
Oh,
and
wow. Right.
and betrays Jim. And
It's a classic.
yeah, it is a classic.
It's a classic. Now, that is not to say, by the way, this is a little bit of a trick question. Can people take your empowerment away? The answer in my mind actually is yes, right? And now, there's a lot of perception involved in it, but that gets to formal power,
Right.
right? When your civil liberties are taken away, right?
Like you were, like
like-
happened to you, right?
Yes. in a way, it took my empowerment away for a moment because somebody had control over the door and I did not have control. And can you tolerate that as another factor, by the way? When you lose control over something, can you handle that? Boy, a lot of people struggle with that one in our own mindsets. So there is formal power, and that does change, but particularly informal or with informal power, boy, we almost give it away sometimes. I would suppose and suggest to you. So The Power of Positive Thinking is a book that I like to point out. Do you ever chuckle? Did you ever hear of that?
I've never read it, but I've heard that title.
Oh,
so many times.
A lot of people, they've made decisions about that book without really having read it.
Really?
Yeah, but I think there's something to it.
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah.
Dude, this was a
Definitely.
pivotal little book for me when I was a kid and I read it. And it opened up a whole new world for me that I hadn't really previous to that considered a lot about. And that is, again, about internal empowerment and the power that you have when you really begin to rationally, emotively, behaviorally change, right? Or cognitively reframe, or if you begin saying, I can. Incidentally, you know, one of the coolest little children's books that I loved the most?
What?
I Think I Can.
I think I can.
I think I can.
Oh,
I loved that story, even as a little child. And I think that's because I was kind of, grooving into this idea of,
little engine that could.
I'm empowered. I can do this. It was a bright feeling for me when I was a little tyke. Still really is, actually. So yeah, there's a lot too. What are we doing with our thinking? Are we internally criticizing? Are we internally bashing? Are we internally helplessly stucking ourselves in a spot? Stucking, is that a word? Anyway, you follow me, right?
Right.
We can change that. And the power of positive thinking was something that kind of came to my mind. I'll tell you, I do another thing in therapy. I'm curious if you guys have any activities that you do that facilitate, like, what are you doing? What's your plan? What is your activity? How can you be empowered? I still like a 1, 5, and 10-year plan.
Oh, I do too.
Do you?
Yeah, I do very much.
There's so many thought leaders out there that poo-poo this, John. And they say, oh, no, that's too much. People don't think that way no more. Did you chuckle, Neil? Oh, he didn't chuckle. I thought he chuckled because he loves this kind of stuff insofar as,
Well,
self-help.
I guess I end up counseling a lot of midlife men and women, but a lot of them have said, well, I've accomplished this. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. And I said, well, let's get a plan.
Absolutely.
I love it when a plan comes together.
Ah, the A-team.
A-team.
The thing is 1, 3, and 5-year plan that people think because it's much short term and people can grasp onto that. Listen, I have done this many times in therapy. You take a piece of paper out. Yes, pen and paper. And that's purposeful because you're tactfully involved in your process. The whole first page is your 1-year plan. Between now and 1 year, what do I want to accomplish? You turn the page over, 2/3 of the page or 3/4 is your 5-year plan. All of the things listed out tactfully with a pencil or pen that I want to accomplish between now and 5 years. And the last quarter or third of that second page is your 10-year plan.
Basically, what you're doing is you're inscribing it into your brain by having the tactile aspect of it.
Yes.
Is that you're actually putting it into the brain itself. It's inputting.
There's neurology involved.
Involved with that.
Yes.
The plasticity.
Yes.
Going there. So I think I'm a very big believer in that.
Yeah, I love this activity, and people have enjoyed it when they really begin, taking control,
I've
knowing
never
I have
used it.
choices. Right? What's that, Victoria?
I've never used it.
Yeah.
Okay.
We do more. I do, but then again, I think kind of what John mentioned is with as far as your clientele. A majority of my clientele is under the age of 40, and that's
Children.
Well, I do see a lot of kids, but I
No,
see a
I'm
lot of
just
adults
joking.
too. And so, I just don't, at least in my time, I have not come across where I believe that would is an effective thing to use. Like I just haven't felt the need to use it.
Do you use anything else? Is my question to you guys. But I would push back a little bit, Victoria, and say I actually started in my career primarily only doing this with teens. To be honest with you,
But you know,
And-
yeah.
I mean, and
I
it's not that we
agree
don't
with
talk
you.
about future stuff. It's just I've never sat down, either brainstormed or what. I mean, we've talked about, okay, well, what's something that you want to achieve in your lifetime? But I mean, not necessarily specifically a 1, 5, and 10 year plan.
I guess it was kind of inculcated in me at a young age because I'm from a religious background. I'm not saying that you aren't, but
Mm-hmm.
the sense is that vocation was always a big thing. It's calling, and that is, and you see that in the Judeo-Christian heritage, and that is where are you supposed to be in the big plan? Where do you have how do you give back to life?
what's your journey?
What's your journey? It's all about the journey.
Right.
And if you know your journey a little bit with your intention, at least it can change. But isn't that a little bit grounding? Doesn't that give you a little bit of certainty?
No.
You know, with
No,
what
I
your
agree.
goals are and how. I mean, it's a part of all kinds of success manuals. I don't think any thought leader out there would propose not to have a plan as a part of your business or your life, really. You know, so yeah, I use this a lot. But let's push a little bit on.
And that's a good musical group journey.
Yes, Mr. Culture, it is. Goals we are talking about need to be reasonable goals. You know, you don't want to make a goal like some naive teenagers might be of like, you know, I'm going to make $1 million by the time I'm 25. You know, it's like we want to have a level of measurable and reasonable
What, you're saying that's not
goals.
reasonable?
That is probably not reasonable.
Well,
yes.
You mean what was his name? Freed or the
Oh,
the FTX or whatever it's called.
yeah, the guy
The
who's in
crypto,
the news
yeah.
with crypto.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he's pretty young. But he's a little bit older than 25, isn't he?
He's about
Is he?
30, 31.
Yeah, I was going to say. So reasonable goals are important. Having develop a positive self-image. You know, this is a huge part of, you know, how do I become empowered? I'm going to speed it up a little bit. I like the concept that I've heard many times over. You are the accumulation of the 5 closest relationships you have. That's very empowering when you're around empowering people and purposefully put yourself around those people. Right? That's a choice that you can make.
Which is why we talk about paying attention to the people you spend your time with.
Yes. Those
Yes.
choices are huge.
Are you coming away from hanging out with your friends emotionally drained, or are you coming away from your friends feeling empowered about the future and about things
Uplifted.
upcoming
So
and
if
uplifted?
you
and
feel like you've been emptied of your blood, your life source,
yeah,
you know that person's
you might want to reevaluate
Yeah.
that why you continue to hang out with that person.
You know,
a negative person. all the
Yeah.
time.
another concept is self-care. The cornerstone of mental health is what I call it. It jumps up
It
here
is,
again,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
This is a concept that you hear us repeating all the time on the show because it is so important. And it's an important part of feeling empowered, taking care of yourself, rest. You know, if you don't have time out to check out from the stress that you have, how are you ever supposed to feel in control of your own life and empowered? You're just drained all the time. And a lot of people live that way.
You know, that's one of the things that I give is the wheel of wellness. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
don't
Jane
think I am.
Myers- But that's a
is that?
big counseling thing because we started out in terms of career.
The well of wellness.
Yeah, the wheel.
Wheel.
The
of
wheel.
wellness.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
it's-
Wheel. Okay, absolutely. I'm familiar with it. But
But
go
you
ahead.
heard me with my little southern mountain accent.
The wheel, the well, the wheel. Go ahead. What's the wheel of wellness?
Well, no, the wheel of how much would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck would. The wheel of wellness it takes in all the areas in terms of spiritual, emotional, intellectual, relationships, that sort of thing, and basically said, "Are you balanced? Live a healthy, well balanced life emotionally and mentally."
Yeah, my wheel goes.
That sounded like my car when it blew up.
Yeah, and just to go a little further on that, the activity with this is in a lot of manuals and books, people refer to this as pretty cool stuff. You take each one of those domains of your life, take your marriage, and you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. And then take your finances, and you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. And a 10 is the furthest out line. And the idea is you get this circle, and hopefully you have 8s, 9s, and 10s.
Integrated life.
Smooth. Yeah, an integrated life, yeah. But if you're rating some of them as a 3 or a 4, and then your wheel starts having these large gaps, and it can get pretty choppy, right? So that's the activity that goes with that. So, yeah, let's begin taxiing in here for a landing. We're not going to have time to get to the last segment I had planned and thought about, which is, do we really apply these things to our lives? And I think the answer is we've talked about that throughout.
Yeah, I think you have to rehearse it too, because expect stumbles and relapses. But the thing is, it, like they say in AA, it works if you work it.
It's a great phrase.
Right.
Yeah. Just keep working it, because eventually, it took me 15 years to get everything together to go back and get my doctorate.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love your point, John, and it's really probably one that's apropos to end on. That you hear ourselves talk on the show about giving yourself some grace, giving yourself some ease. Realize this is not going to be a perfect ride. The wheel is going to be choppy. You kind of make some headway, and then you feel some pull back into old behaviors. But it's a journey. It's a growth area. And the more that you manage this, the better and better you feel. And you feel success building upon success to really feeling fully fulfilled and empowered. It's a wonderful journey to watch people go on through our therapy experience. Right.
Yeah, that's very much. I see the plane coming down.
No, I love when you can see a client become empowered, and you can see the progress of that. I love that.
I do too.
Yeah,
it's a gift in our work with people, for sure.
It's very humbling sometimes.
Very,
it's
an honor to do what we do.
Yeah.
It is an absolute honor to do what we do. So listen, we've given you hopefully some ideas to kind of take into your lives, to implement and move forward in your life, feeling empowered, controlled, confident, and really generally good about yourself. So take some of these ideas, implement them, give us a note, drop us a note, and let us know how you've been able to be successful with that. Contact it Through a Therapist's Eyes. It'd be fun to hear about that. So take care, remain well, and we will see you again, guys, next week.
Take
Bye,
care.
y'all.
Bye.